Okay, we made it. Week 3. We're talking about relationships and how that makes what we do here at Life with Kin valuable. This is a topic that is so loaded for me. It makes me smile. I like relationships. Relationships are good. Um, Humanity, we are relational beings. Human beings are relational beings. In some capacities and in some respects, we organize society in a way where there is this inherent relationality that is a part of connection. Um, Biblically speaking, it's not good for man to be alone. This is one of the first things God spoke over humanity. Um, Depending on your belief set, I'm a Christian, so so this is one of the first things God spoke as it relates to how I perceive and relate with my faith in the context of the Bible. It's not good for man to be alone. So like, and then from that you get women, and then from there you get family, and well, from there you get marriage, and then from there you get family, and then family being the core, the nucleus as it relates to where all relationships come from. And then from family, you get to a place where individuals may want to break away from the family, and so they go and create new relationships. And again, within the context of the Bible, that new relationship that is created outside of the family is in some cases more virtuous. It's easy for you to love or care for somebody you know, but how much does it require, or what do you have to overcome in and of yourself or in and of your thought process for you to care for and connect with somebody you don't know? So these are some of the um, foundational understandings, of life. Is like, like, we're here to connect with other people. Like, that's just the whole thing in a nutshell. Whether you are for it or not is unavoidable. And I just enjoy it. It just inspires me and encourages me because I like connecting with people. Part of Life with Ken, and part of who I am as a vulnerable individual, is, well, when I say as a vulnerable individual, I mean within the context of my vulnerability. We all have vulnerabilities. The you that is you when your defenses aren't up. The me that is me when I am not defensive is vulnerable. I like to share myself and be open, and the start of Life with Ken was part of that process. I found myself in a space and place when I started doing Life with Ken. By the way, we are going into our 5th year of being in existence, which is like crazy to even say. In some cultures, they don't celebrate a child's um, coming of age. Like when a child is born, in some cultures they don't celebrate, or whether it be in some current cultures or in past cultures, they either don't or wouldn't celebrate that child's birthday until they turn 5 years old, because the likelihood that the kid would survive up to 5 within certain contexts was low. So it's exciting to be coming up on this milestone. It will be happening in July. I don't know what we're going to do yet. I've been in prayerful consideration, but I'm just excited. I'm beaming at this topic. But when I was in the place and space of starting this process of creating Life with Ken, firstly, like, I didn't think I'd be doing all of this, and that's just the presence and the influence of God in my life. I didn't think that I'd be doing all of this, but at the time, it was just a space and place for me to just write and just like share myself. Writing became the medium for me to just articulate my thoughts and feelings, and that just came from being unheard or silenced in other places. In the article attached with this video, I go into a little bit more depth about that. But essentially, I found myself in a place and space where, the vulnerable me still wanted to exist, but some of the nouns around me was suppressing that aspect of me for reasons that I really can only speculate on and have my own opinions. And as someone who studied psychology, I can draw certain conclusions, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily accurate, but it does mean they are informed. Everything is informed by your own experience. So when I'm speaking on things, I can only speak on my experience. And then hopefully, as I translate or communicate what my experiences are to you, you can resonate with one aspect of what I'm saying and draw that dot or make that connection to that personal experience that you're having. Again, these are like little things that contribute to relationship, contribute to connection, contribute to communing with other people. And so for me, that's what I needed. I needed to connect with people. I needed to feel seen and heard, but also share. You know, like one of the hard things to do is have something to say and feel as though you can't say it, because just because you don't have something to say, or just because you feel as though you can't speak on what you have to say, doesn't mean, I said just because you don't have something to say earlier, just because you don't have the capacity to say what you have to say, or aren't in a space where you feel comfortable to speak on what you have to say, doesn't mean that what you have to say isn't or shouldn't be said. You know, sometimes things will well up in you and you have no other unction but to speak on what's on your heart or what's on your mind. And so that was the kind of space and place that I was in, and that was what laid some of the second layer foundations of life with kin. Some of the first layer foundations are in financial literacy and financial well-being, which we will talk about next week. But on top of that layer is just needing to express myself in a way that I wasn't allowed to in certain contexts. And the problem with not being allowed to in those certain contexts, where those certain contexts were my entire life, it was all I knew at the time. I wasn't necessarily given the latitude to explore or express myself in other ways that probably, I'm not going to say would have been more fruitful or more beneficial, but definitely would have been more satiating or satisfying, at least in my mind and how I thought about it. But also, I don't think that God wastes anything either. So I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't go through some of those things. But also, some of those things, you also have to recognize that some things that you go through are inherently unnecessary. um, and what I mean by being inherently unnecessary is that, frankly, you should have never went through it in the first place. And so, and this is whatever that thing is for you in your relative life. There are some things that we all go through that, objectively speaking, if you distill it down, you should have never went through in the first place. And so I have moments like that, specifically as it relates to my relational life and how I feel about relationships. But that doesn't detract from my inspiration, vigor, excitement, and elation on the topic. You know, I'm a relational being. So, within that context and within that understanding, me who I am today is a byproduct of me overcoming those challenges that may have inhibited me in some way or in some capacity. Ultimately, how that translates and communicates into what we do here at Life with Kin, and what makes what we do here at Life with Kin matter, is that we're all relational. So if I can inspire, encourage, and imbue you with what you need to develop your relationships, to have healthier relationships, to know when to leave unhealthy relationships, to know if you're the one being unhealthy in a relationship and what that looks like and what you can do to ameliorate that sort of situation, then that is adding more value to our brand, that is adding more value to our mission of helping you live more confidently, and ultimately that is adding more value to you, which through the law of value will add more value to me. In some ways, not to get on too much of a tangent here, this is something that I plan on talking about. I do separate content as it relates to the business goals and aspirations of Life with Ken, and Life with Ken is just part of something bigger that I'm working towards, building towards. But all throughout that entire process, our business model essentially is relationships. I want to connect with you, and through that connection, there is value that comes forth from that as it relates to how you can operate within your own life, and how that will inspire you to operate within and for the lives of other people. Um, it's just I'm fundamentally, I'm just talking about humanity. Fundamentally, I'm just talking about self-actualization. Fundamentally, I'm just talking about what it means to be an objectively good person. These are things that, again, from my personal experiences, I have come to value and have identified as things that are valuable. And through those experiences and through the lens of who I am as a person, that is how I'm trying to materialize and create those things in my life and for the people who are ultimately connected to me within my life. So that is what makes relationships a valuable part of what we do here at Life with Ken, because everything is relationships. We want to connect with you so that you can connect with others, so that you can be a better person in your life and in your lived experience, and we all can benefit from what that experience is like. Objectively, something like that where everybody is healthy, nobody is encumbered by corruption, no one is operating in a way that is maladaptive for the purpose of lowercase d, for the purpose of lowercase s survival. We're not even talking about literally dying, but just socially dying. You know, we don't have to imagine a world where you don't have to walk on eggshells, where you don't have to send a certain email a certain type of way as to not offend somebody, or you don't have large egos who you can't speak candidly towards or be honest with because you're afraid of how they might respond. All these things are maladaptive behaviors that one, society breeds, but two, that we, not we, you and me, maybe you and me, but not that people in general, sometimes you, historically myself, and in some cases still myself, but I try to improve and get better every day, we may perpetuate certain types of maladaptive behaviors to lowercase s survive within the context of a society that is essentially eroding or becoming corrupted because of those behaviors. So you end up seeing this tautological kind of loop that ends up taking place there. Imagine if you're able to break out of that. Imagine if you're able to become a fully developed, healthy individual who can have meaningful conversations and relationships with whoever is in front of you or around you, who has something of value to say. And even if it's not fundamentally of value, it is still appreciated and valued. And then because you are communicating and contributing to the conversation, your perspective allows for different things to come forth. I don't know all of your ideas. You know, this Life with Ken, this project, any other project wouldn't be too effective without feedback from other people. So that feedback can inform the output and production of work. So like the free flow of communication and openness of ideas. You know, I've worked at companies that at the very least talk about, if they don't act on or demonstrate openness and allowing people to share their opinion, make their opinions known. So there is value in that and being empowered to engage in that type of space and place. So that's what makes relationships as part of what we do at Life with Ken valuable, because it just makes life more vivid in all areas, whether it be professionally, familially, within the context of your friends or acquaintances, relationally, who you pick as a spouse, who you choose to date. Like, all of that stuff influences your trajectory, but you also influence its trajectory. And then iron sharpens iron. So as long as you are connected with people who are trying to get better, you will get better if you choose to do so, because that's just the nature of what will happen in that type of dynamic. And then the last thing that I'll speak on too is sometimes people don't always need to travel together, you know, and that's been part of my learned experience as well, where it's like, and that's a biblical concept too. Do two men walk together if they're not going in the same direction, or if they do not have somewhere to go? I'm not going to get too deep there, because if you watch the last video, I can travel sometimes as it relates to my scripture reciting. So, but it is in the Bible. I'll put it in the description of this video. Also, Life with Ken, we're a growing channel here on YouTube. I just started making YouTube videos recently. I do have plans for more content in the future. We're still working out on how that looks like, but I would just ask you to subscribe and connect with us. That would be a great way for you to get in on the ground level here on this YouTube page, but also go check out our Substack, lifewithken.com, lifewithken.substack.com, and just check out some of our other articles and some of our other content. You can also follow us on X as well, where you can just be up to date with any updates that we have and come out. And since I'm plugging stuff here, you can also subscribe to my newsletter that I send out every week as well. So just, we're doing a lot of different things. YouTube is part of that process. So if you want to, and YouTube is a late entry but a key part to that process. So if you want to be on the ground level specifically as it relates to that, I would be really grateful and appreciated if you were to subscribe. I got to get used to asking that. It's a little uncomfortable, but I'll work through it by the grace of God. But nonetheless, sometimes you can have people in your life that just don't need to be in your life anymore. People come for reasons, seasons, and lifetimes. At Life with Ken, when one of the things I talk about is like, hey, I'm here to journey with you. Once our journey is up, you may go. I have people, I watch my numbers and analytics and stuff. People subscribe and unsubscribe all the time, and it's like that's just part of the nature of life. You connected for a little bit, then you went your own separate way. If you when you go to school, or if you ever worked at a job and left, or whatever, you moved states, or you moved towns, or you moved countries. You had people in your life in that space, then you move to a different space, you don't have those people anymore. Then you have some people that do stick around, and there's some people that want you to be part of their entire life. I met you X amount of years ago, and we're just doing this thing. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, I'm grateful because I've seen both sides. I've experienced both sides of that spectrum of having relationships that ran their course and it was just time to go. And you can know, sometimes when a relationship has run its course too, because it just becomes so arduous and tiring and exhausting. And then depending on what the context of that is, and you have to deal with certain things that frankly you shouldn't have to deal with, or not to be arrogant or anything like that, you just don't want to deal with it anymore. It may not be a bad thing, you just may be over it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we also have to remain humble and put in perspective that you're not always the good person. I'm not always right. You know what I'm saying? Like, you also have to keep that in proper perspective as well, that other people have other opinions, and their side may be more accurate, whatever the case may be. But what's valuable is that you put your lived experience and your perception first. So yeah, you could be wrong, but just have the humility to acknowledge that. Just have the humility to say, I'm no better than anybody else. This is my experience. I'm not saying that I'm right or that you're wrong. I just need to operate and conduct myself in a certain way, and I think that that's okay, taking that stance on certain things, but never to be boastful or arrogant in any capacity as it relates to yourself. But sometimes within that context, you may arrive at a place where, okay, I don't need to journey, quote unquote, journey with these people, this person or these people in life anymore. And so we need to go our separate ways. And sometimes that can be difficult as well if you're trauma bonded with the individual, meaning that you went through some experience that connected you in a certain type of way. And now you feel as though you can't, get away from that person because you have that experience, which is usually a lot of times how people connect. Um, but regardless of how the connection happens, sometimes it can be difficult to leave a connection, or to leave a relationship that you are ready to let go of, but you don't want to let go of that person. You don't want to hurt that person, whatever the case may be. So that happens as well, and that may take a little bit more gumption or fortitude within yourself. But that's something that you have to consider as well. People come for reasons, seasons, and lifetimes. You don't want anyone to overstay their welcome in whatever category that they're in, and you don't want to put certain people in wrong categories as well. So, I say all that to say, hopefully, I effectively transferred some enthusiasm to you. I really do value this topic. I really do value this concept personally. And I'm just grateful that the Lord has allowed for that to also translate into the project that is Life with Ken and what we do here. So I hope you found value in this. I hope that you do what you have to do to ensure healthy relationships in your life. I'll also drop an article as well in the description below on Healthy Hurts, an article that I wrote that kind of highlights even more depth some of the experience that I have around this topic in different capacities. But make sure you actually read the article that is associated with this post that talks more about how relationships are relevant to the Life with Ken experience overall. I value you. Thank you. Have a good one. See you in the next video.